तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। अशेमवहु वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टामान् यदशाय वहिष्ठाय शेम। Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham sharanam gacchami dhammam sharanam gacchami sangham sharanam gacchami. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
On behalf of everyone gathered here in this online Satsang, I offer my most reverential salutations at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sai Ram and warm welcome to all of you. Today, in our region, we are celebrating the 96th birthday of our dear Lord. The number 96 is very special to us Sai devotees. Many decades ago, Bhagavan revealed to this world 6 important phases of 16 years each, covering 96 years of his avataric sojourn. Those phases, as we know, are Leela or divine play, Mahima or miracles, Upadesh or teaching, Vidya or education, Vaidya or medicine, and finally, the last phase that spans the years from 2006 to 2022 is a phase of Sanatana Dharma, or establishment of eternal righteousness. And on this November 23rd, we are entering that 96th year and the last year in the phase of the Sanatana Dharma. So we can understand how important this and what a milestone this birthday is for all Sai devotees. And on this special occasion, to enlighten us on how to celebrate an avatar's birthday, we have a special guest who is dedicated his life to spreading the message and principles of Sanatana Dharma, none other than Dr. Sunder Iyer. Dr. Iyer is an alumnus of Sri Satyasai Institute of Higher Learning. He was in the first batch of students to join Swami's College in Puttaparthi in 1979. And he completed his graduation, post-graduation, and subsequently earned his PhD in banking and finance. He then continued to teach in Swami's University until 1994. Spending 15 years in close proximity to Bhagavan, Brother Sunder had innumerable occasions of learning from his divine presence, direct divine presence. He also had the privilege of being a personal attendant of Swami during his student days. During this period of close encounters with the divine, Brother Sunder not only witnessed Swami in his day-to-day life, but also was privileged to be personally guided by the avatar. Later in 1992, Swami was gracious to perform the marriage of Brother Sunder and his wife Maya in Prashanthi Nilayam. Dr. Sundar's passion in practicing and teaching yoga, and he is the only student that received a gold medal for yoga from the divine hands in 1984 at the Sai University. Everything he learned about yoga, he learned at Swami's lotus feet and from the visiting masters. His passion for spreading the message of Sai through yoga and meditation has taken him around the world, conducting yoga and meditation camps. In 2011, Brother Sunder took an early retirement from his IT career and now dedicates his life to spreading the message of traditional yoga to the principles of Sanatana Dharma. This has become his life's mission, and to realize that mission, Brother Sunder created the International Center for Yoga, Vedanta, and Human Advancement under the name Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam. Before I invite Brother Sunder to speak to us, I just want to make a mention that after Brother Sundar's talk, we'll have an opportunity to have a question and answer session with him. And all of you who have joined on Zoom will have an opportunity to submit your questions via chat to the moderator, who is our brother Sri Akela. And please, his name in the chat starts with moderator, so you can easily find him there. And once you submit your questions, he will present that to Brother Sunder, who has graciously agreed to try and address as many questions as possible in the given time frame. Now to the part we have been anxiously waiting for. Dear brothers and sisters, it's my honor and privilege to invite Dr. Sunder Iyer. Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. My dear sisters and brothers, it is with great humility and honor that I sit in front of this camera and sharing this auspicious virtual space with you all on this very, very auspicious days where we celebrate the divine advent of our beloved Master, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Before I even begin to share my thoughts, I would first like to take this opportunity and thank the organizers of this retreat, of this occasion, for considering me and giving me this divine opportunity. Every time I speak about Swami, I do so mindfully and from the depths of my heart and soul, if you will. Because it is only once in a lifetime that we get this privilege of coming across such a wonderful master. It is true, 96 years is a wonderful landmark, but I think every birthday is a landmark. Every moment that we are in His fold, in our thoughts, in our words, and in our deeds, it is a landmark for us in our lives. And therefore, it is every day with Him, every day in His thoughts, every day in His service is a day to celebrate. But nevertheless, this is a wonderful occasion, marking a historical saga of 96 years, divided into 16 phases, as Brother Srijit beautifully pointed out. While we think it is an end of a phase, it's actually just the beginning of yet another divine, more powerful, more vibrant phase. And once again, you and I are privileged to be part of this phase. Not everything is very evident at this moment, but history will record our thoughts, our words, our actions. And the more we reflect the teachings of Sai, the more future generations will offer their selfless, unconditional gratitude to all of us. Those of us who have shared this generation with Sai, those of us who have claimed that we saw him, those of us who have claimed that we lived with him or stayed with him or visited the ashram and had his darshan and sparshan, his touch, his words, listened to him directly. To me, future generations will ask me this question, and that's what I take home every day. Is it did not matter what you got from Sai. All your stories are great. All your experiences are wonderful. All the gifts you got from Sai are wonderful. But the question that comes from them, from a young child, perhaps, in the future would be, so what? What is the difference then? What is the difference between you and others who haven't seen him, who haven't spoken to him, who haven't received the gifts from him? What is the difference? What are you leaving behind or left behind that is so different from those who haven't known Sai, who haven't been exposed to his teachings? That's what keeps me up at nights. That's what motivates me and my wife, Maya, to leave a legacy behind. A legacy which will speak for itself. Because one of the greatest things I took home from Swami was he said, not only is my life my message, speaking about him, but he would often point to us and say, your life is my true message. Your life, the way you live, the way you act, the way you talk, the way you conduct yourselves, your thoughts, your visions, your perceptions, everything is a reflection of me and my message. What a great responsibility. More than that, I would actually think it's a divine opportunity that is given to us to be able to reflect Sai's teachings. of love, oneness. I remember in the 65th birthday, Swami asked me to write a play, and I wrote the play from scratch, sitting with him at his feet. And he said, I want 100 boys in this drama, in this play. Because at that point, the Shanti Vedika stage in the stadium was the new thing, and Swami wanted, because it is a big stage, let's fill it up with all the boys. I want at least 100 boys, he said. And with that challenge in mind, how can you bring everyone in a drama, right? But of course, he showed us the way, and we had a lot of village scenes with villagers and all of that. While that experience was wonderful, he was so adamant about the theme of that play, and that was unity is divinity. He named it himself. Unity is divinity. I want that to be the main thing. And I could see when I was sitting at Swami's feet, the amount of energy he had when he spoke about that. So to me, lessons like those are very, very dear to my heart, because it was not from a book that I read this. It's not somebody else's experience, but my own firsthand experience of being in the presence of one who believed in love, oneness, divinity, and so on. I often speak of Swami and learn from Swami by looking at him as a human being, not necessarily as a god walking on earth or as an avatar. And one might wonder, why so? Why are you afraid to call him an avatar? Are you shy to call him an avatar? What is it that you keep saying about why are you focusing on the human part of Baba when he was God walking on this earth? Think of this analogy. When you are in the room and the sun has risen over the horizon, and the sun is rising up in the sky, getting warmer and hotter and brighter. You say, draw the blinds. There's too much light in the room. Or you can say, there is no light in the room. Let's open the curtains, allow more light to come, depending on where you are, where your window is, and so on. This is based on your reference to the sun. But have you actually seen the sun? Has anyone seen the sun? Has anyone on this planet or even in this universe, for those of you who believe in aliens, anyone experienced the sun? We have drawn inferences from the gadgets that we have discovered and invented of how big the sun is, how hot the sun is, and so on. It's inferences, right? There is still no mechanism by which one can even near anywhere close to the sun. But yet you and I seem to have an access to the sun. We can close a curtain and stop the sunlight from coming into our home. We can open the curtains and allow the sunlight to flood our home. So what are we really dealing with? Are we controlling the sun? Can we say I'm able to control the sun or understand the sun? No. What we are able to deal is that aspect of the sun that speaks to us, that relates to us, that we can relate to. And that is the ray of the sun, or the rays of the sun. We can deal with the rays of the sun, not the sun itself. So for me to speak, taking that analogy and applying it here, to speak of Swami and label him as a god or an avatar would mean that I have somehow some knowledge, some experience of that profound concept, the profundity of Brahman, the infinite nature of the cosmic being, the super intelligence that has crafted not only the universe as you and I know it in this dimension, but 14 such dimensions, 7 below us and 7 above. An intelligence that not only just manifested these dimensions of creation, but is monitoring it, building it, enjoying through its Shakti, through its vibrations, the creative principle in its fullest glory. How can one even grasp the enormity of that intelligence? And to even go anywhere closer would be where one loses one's mind. And there is no return. Just like as you go into the sun, there is probably no return. But then there is one aspect of this intelligent, this vibrant cosmic energy that we call Brahman, the Shiva consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the Allah, Jehovah, and so on, is when that is reflected in the way you and I can grasp a little bit through a human form. And to me, Sai, Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai Baba, was a reflection of that supreme principle. I begin to understand and brave myself to explore the extent of that formlessness. Eventually, someday, we will all lose ourselves in that exploration. And that's the whole purpose. But in that journey, I'm beginning, when I deal with Swami and call that infinite principle Swami with a near and dear approach, call him Baba as my father, Swami as my dear Lord. When I deal with that, then I see a human form in front of me. I relate to that. I like to seek inspiration from that human form, from the words that came out of that human form, from his actions, from his lifestyle, and everything that he did. Because if we credit him with that infinite power of Godhead that we so unhesitatingly give, then we must for a moment wonder, stop and wonder at everything that he did in his life is a lesson for you and I to take home. And if we close our doors to that, then we perhaps miss the point of this incarnation, of the life and the teachings of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. To me, it is that important. We say Sai Ram almost 100 times every day for those of us who are Sai devotees. Our hellos are Sai Rams, our thank yous are Sai Rams, our how are yous are Sai Rams. Oh, I haven't seen you for a long time. All comes down to one Sai Ram. So we compare Sai to Rama. Rama himself, as described by Valmiki, the most original, the first ever description of Rama was by Valmiki. He is the one who brought Rama to all of us. In that description, Valmiki does not dare claim Rama as the avatar and Vishnu and God on earth, none of that. He calls him Maryada Purushottama Ram. Maryada Purushottam. The embodiment of Dharma, the embodiment of right action. And he explains the whole life of Ram. The Valmiki Ramayana is an amazing story of how one can deal with the human side of Rama, because we all go through turmoils in our life, struggles in our life. And then we look up to some role model that would have lived this before us, so we can draw inspiration and lessons from that life. Rama is one such story given to us in that form. But if we close our hearts and minds to that concept, and Sai himself is right now that story for us to deal with. But if we close our hearts and minds to that aspect of the humanness of Sai, in which actually lies the divinity, and then we are very quick to place placing him up in an altar, claiming he's God and not God, and this is how you should worship, and that's how you should sing, and this and that, and we become dogmatic in our approach, then we are only creating distance between us and Sai. And to me, that defeats the purpose of his whole mission. Because if his mission can be put in essence, it is about you, about him reminding you and me of our inherent divinity. I remember very beautifully once as we sat at Swami's feet, he said, if you want to understand Sai, first understand yourself. And in understanding yourself, you will understand Swami. You will understand Sai. We were young at that time, though these words did resound in my heart, and fortunately they stayed. And there are many such that come to my mind as I continue to meditate on those beautiful moments. At that moment, we didn't grasp, I can at least speak for myself, I didn't grasp the enormity of that statement. But today, thousands of miles away from the place where he was born, many years after his passing away physically, you and I take our time off to spend, not just for his birthday, but almost every day, every week, we offer some time for his cause, in his service, in his name. We read about him, we listen about him, even if it's a bhajan. That is how strong he has impacted our lives. And therefore, allow me for the next few minutes to share with you some of the most important things that I took home. And there are many, many, many lessons. So this morning, as I sat in contemplation, there were about 3 or 4 words, maybe even 5, that came to my mind. And I want to share that with you and see how Swami guides us in that process. Because to me, there are 3 very important occasions as a devotee, as a follower of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. One, the day that he was born. There is no question about it. It is not, it just didn't happen thousands of years ago where we have to debate on when exactly he was born, or whether he was born. Like it's like in the case of Rama and Krishna, where there's a debate about whether it's a mythology or whether it's history, right? We don't have to. Even if Jesus 2000 years ago is a matter of debate, it's a matter of faith now. But for you and I, we all know he was born, so that's good news. The second thing, we also know when, what date. So that's an important date, 23rd November. And then the day he passed away, Easter. We were all there. Many of us have witnessed it directly or have been part of that generation which has witnessed the passing away of such a great master. The second important day, when the river went back to being the ocean. When I was in Badrinath recently, a year and a half ago, just before COVID hit, I was sitting and meditating at the shrine. And when I saw that small little image of Badrinarayana in meditation pose, I could only see Swami. At that moment, I felt he's gone back to being the Badrinarayana. So the second most important day in my life, and I'm sure in your lives as well, in our years, in our calendars, if you will, is the day he passed into that, once again, going back to being the Son, the Supreme Being. And the third is the Guru Purnima, where we offer our prostrations to him as a teacher, because we can relate to him as a teacher, and we bow to him with eternal gratitude. So in my wife's heart and my heart, we carry these 3 days as the 3 most precious days as followers of Sai. And of course, there are all the other festivals as well, but these are particularly dedicated to the Sai form, name and form. And today, in fact, this week rather, there are celebrations all over the world, ranging from 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and it goes on till Thanksgiving weekend. Many centers are celebrating it all over the world. So it's a joyous occasion. But along with that joyous occasion, along with that celebration, we must take in the depth of that, the energy that Sai is, the depth of the teachings that Sai represented. He did not come, I believe, and everything that I say here, of course, is one blind man offering his perspectives on what an elephant looks like. So please take it always with a pinch of salt. I believe he didn't come to become one more god in our altar of 330 crores of gods and goddesses that we already have in the Hindu pantheon. He did not come to add himself as one more. He came to remind us that the God we seek is the God we are. When will we begin that journey? We sometimes sit back and say, oh, Swami will take care of all that. No, I don't have time to go into spirituality. Or we conveniently say, I don't know all that. It is all too much philosophy. We push it away because it is too difficult. Because spiritual sadhana means taking responsibility. But when we push it away, we are actually pushing Sai away. We are pushing the essence of what he represented away, thinking that just if I sing bhajans, I go to work, I listen to bhajans, I drive back from work, I listen to bhajans. So that is good enough for me. Swami would call that part-time devotion. When, you and I have snacks many times in a day, correct? We eat when we are bored, we eat when we are watching TV, we eat when friends come home, or we've gone out, we just stop in by Starbucks and pick up a coffee and some snacks, maybe, I don't know. We have many reasons to eat, but are we satisfied with those snacks? What if we come home and our spouse tells us, hey, wait, you've had so many snacks, you don't need a meal today. Will you be happy? Perhaps, but most probably we would say, wait, I need my meal. How can I live without my meal? So at least one main meal a day brings us satisfaction in spite of the fact that we have spent considerable occasions, or innumerable, rather, not innumerable, 3, 4, 5 other occasions in the day snacking. Why? Because that snacking was not really eating. We know that, you know that. We need to sit and at the table with our family, perhaps, and have a couple of servings of food. Then we feel contented that I've had my meal for the day. It is the same thing with sleep. You can nap sitting on the chair. You can take short naps, but then one long dedicated session of sleep is a must. It is the same thing in spiritual sadhana. To me, listening to Swami, Swami's bhajan goes on in our house. But what do? I talk, I gossip on top of that bhajan. I drive in so many devotees' cars, they have the bhajans on and they will be chatting. So to me, all of that may be good, may be bad. I don't know. I don't judge good or bad there. All I'm trying to say, and perhaps introspect, because these are the times we learn these things, right? Is we are using it as snacks. Or as I'm driving, I listen. But am I completely focused on that bhajan? No, I cannot, because I am driving, right? And so apart from these little snacky things that we do, a little service at the weekend, a little bhajans every day, or something like this, when is the main meal I have with my spiritual meal? When is it? You have to ask yourself, do I have one? What kind of meal is that? When is that? And just like I'm strict with my meal, am I strict with that spiritual meal? That is me and my Swami. It's not about which organization I'm affiliated to, what's my belief, what's my religion, none of that. What sadhana, what techniques, none of that. That moment, everything else becomes secondary. That moment, or those few moments, whether it is 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, That is just me and my Swami, and nothing else matters. Do I put the world aside, my life aside, and I sit completely meditating on him, thinking about him, talking to him, contemplating on him, his teachings, his life? And does my mind rise above the mundane activities of everyday life, whether it is sports or politics or my own issues? Does my mind rise into that dimension of pure love and oneness with the divine? If I don't do that, then I've not had my spiritual meal for the day. And once I begin to have that spiritual meal every day, the most beautiful doors open. Sai becomes alive. And then you feel his presence every moment of every day of our life. In one Telugu drama, Swami wrote this for his 60th birthday. రాకపోకలేని రామచంద్రుడుకు వచ్చుటం ఎక్కడికి పోవటం ఎక్కడికి. For the Ramachandra who doesn't have to come and go, where is this coming of Rama and going of Rama? There is nothing like that. But why don't we experience it? Why don't you and I experience that? It's because perhaps that one meal a day, we don't have that spiritual nutrition, which otherwise we are providing for our body and all of that. So allow me to share these lessons which are down to earth. At least we'll start with one very down to earth lessons that I'm going to just share, not lessons, but words that I want you to take home as a gift from Baba and me, I guess. It's a gift for me as well. So we can begin to think on these things. As a young boy, when I first went to Swami, the first thing that struck me most, I was raised in a very orthodox family. We had so many satsangs, we had so many gurus come home and all of that, gurus of all ages. One thing that struck me most and stayed with me to the very end was his physical body and how Swami dedicated and devoted time to take care of his, and that word is health. Health. Health is one very important lesson we can take home from Swami. There is no video of Swami that we know of where he looks unhealthy. True, he had an accident and he broke his back. That's an accident. It's nothing to do with health. He was as functional mentally and physically as he was in his younger days. And that happened only in the last 10, 15 years, I guess, of his divine saga. But the Sai I knew in the 80s and well into the 90s is a Sai who was on his feet like he was a 20-year-old, physically, mentally. He would always up the game, if you will, challenging himself and others around him to do better. And I would always be wonderstruck watching his very, very, very disciplined lifestyle. There was not even a single day that I can think of or ever come close to thinking of where he said, all right, you know what? I'm tired of all this. I want to chill. You know, the way we say, I want to chill, sit back just with a few people. Let's eat and enjoy. You know how you and I, when we have weekend friends and we say, do satsang, they say, oh yeah, satsang and all over. Yeah, let's sit down and just chill. What do we do for chilling? Oh, bring out the foodies, the goodies, right? Chips and pizzas or whatever it is, we open all of that. To the extent that even we go in Shivratri, we are supposed to give up food and sleep and think of God. But we first load ourselves and then keep the dining table filled up in case we feel hungry. So we actually end up eating more, drinking more on Shivratri night, under the excuse that we are staying awake doing bhajans, nevertheless. But Sai was very different. So on this birthday of Sai, can we take home and ask this question? He set an example of a young, frail, slim, wonderful body, which was a temple to adore. Why is it that you and I love to look at the videos of Swami, the one that we just saw as Srijit and others put it just before this program started? It was so beautiful to look at him walk, gliding almost, complete control over his physical body. Why don't we take home the lessons of health? So we as Sai devotees become examples and leave a legacy for future generations, where the future generations, future children will look up and say, those who followed Sai, look at them, how healthy they were. Perhaps that thought crossed your mind. Perhaps it didn't. Perhaps it's the last thing on our minds. Because we let ourselves go in an indisciplined manner, and somehow we think Swami will take care of it. This is a fantastical idea that we build and create, none of which is true. It is a fantasy. This temple has been given to us. We earned it through evolution of millions of lifetimes, through our karma and deeds. And ask yourself, when you look at yourself in the mirror today or tomorrow, ask yourself, what have I done to this temple? Am I happy? Or does this temple need work? And if the temple itself is dilapidated, if the temple itself is unstructured and indisciplined in its construction, how can there be a deity inside this temple? How can that experience of I am God, I am God, I am not different God even materialize? To me, Swami represented that. He was so strict with his diet. He didn't prove this to anyone. He didn't publicize what he ate and what he didn't eat. It was there for us as students to see. It was very clear. Neither did he force that on us. That is the beauty. Swami always led by an example, motivating. Those who caught onto the train, hopped onto his plane, went on with him. He never touched sweets, never touched sugar. So on his birthday, do we make sugar and sweets? You have to ask yourself, why am I making this sugar and sweet when the person to whom I'm offering didn't touch sweets and sugar? Do we ask ourselves that question? Perhaps we do, perhaps we don't. And if we don't, this is perhaps the time to ask, why? Then I'm using that as an excuse. Swami ate ragi balls and perhaps half a chapati a day. I'm not saying we should go do that blindly, but think about how much importance he gave. He used food as medicine, which is what is always meant to be. Food was actually and always a medicine for the body. Food was not and never was in Vedanta, in Sanatana Dharma, in all the teachings of the scriptures, food was never a means of pleasure. No one was ever rewarded with food. But we treat food as a reward. We have created food as a means of pleasure, and we have turned the tables on ourselves. So as devotees of Sai, let us take this lesson and pay attention to this body and take health as primary. Knowing that he was the embodiment of health, he was the embodiment of vibrancy, he was the embodiment of youthfulness. Like I said, not only in his body, but in his mind, in his spirit. Everything about him was so young, so jubilant. And so let us take that on this birthday. May not make big decisions, but at least start taking steps towards improving our own health, because in us lies the Sai waiting to be reflected to the world. And can we as individuals, as families, as communities, as generations, can we leave that legacy behind, reflecting what Sai taught us through our bodies? The next word that I'm going to share, which is again this is the basics, right? So because it's a vehicle, once the vehicle is up and running, then we can take it to any destination we want. But if the vehicle itself is unable to work well, then no matter what our plans are, we cannot go very far. The next one that inspires me most is this word called integrity. These are ideas rather than just words. The first idea being health, the second one being integrity. Integrity, another words for ethics, if you will, or values, if you will, or the ability for your thoughts to find the expressions in your words, and for your words to reflect your deeds, or your deeds to reflect your words. In other words, the thoughts that's going on inside me, the words that I'm speaking, and my actions, are they integrated? Are they integral? Is there integrity in them? One of the greatest lessons I take home from Swami is this amazing quality of integrity. That is what differentiates an avatar from us. That's what differentiates a sun's ray from a dark corner, if you will. The ray of the sun, every ray of the sun has a powerful teaching. So this ray of the sun brought me the teaching of integrity. Integrity is where I begin to follow my innermost core belief system, my value system, whatever that values are. And this could be different for each of us, depending on our culture, depending on our background. It could change according to different contexts. They're not written in stone. They are not dogmatic. Sanatana Dharma is not dogmatic. Vedic Dharma is not dogmatic. The teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Sai are not dogmatic. They're not making you religious. They make you spiritual. In other words, you follow your spirit. Swadharma. Follow your dharma. What is my dharma? What is my inner calling? Are my words representing that? Are my actions representing that? If I am so concerned about my environment, if I'm teaching my children about environment, if I'm a Balvikas teacher or SSC teacher, bringing environment consciousness and planting trees in the environment and respecting Mother Earth and water and so on, how can I bring that into my words, into my actions? Can I drive only when it's absolutely necessary? Can I use the resources with mindfulness? Am I working in an industry which is eventually destroying people's lives, like Coke? I don't know. You have to ask yourself, am I contributing to that? Or am I saying, no, I just need my salary. I don't drink Coke. But are you working perhaps in an industry that is eventually offering something that is harming people? If you know that, and you have compromised on that belief for quote unquote practical reasons, then you have to ask yourself, I have marred the integrity of my soul. With Swami, that these are not easy lessons. I'm not, please bear with me. I'm not preaching from a pulpit at all. I am sharing with you what is touching my heart, what we are struggling. My wife and I, we work hard every day. And this journey is beautiful when we do this as an adventure. Of course, we'll fall, we'll make mistakes. The lesson of integrity is not an easy one. The practice of integrity is definitely not an easy one. It's very easy to compromise. It is very easy to lie. It's very easy to say, oh, we are just being practical. Politicians do that. Everybody does that. And so why not I? That is how we compromise. Not many people are listening to me if I do integrity. Who will respect me if I go being integral person? I want to be successful. I don't want to follow this integrity. And so we compromise. At the end of life, what we achieved in our life is not important at all, doesn't count at all. How many satsangs you attended does not count at all. How many pujas you did, what your sadhana was, and all of that, nothing counts. What counts is what was the transformation that happened in the chitta, in the depths of our subconscious, unconscious mind, if we use Western terms, but chitta is in the chitta Raja is sitting there. What have I offered in that chitta, which I'm going to carry into my next birth? Riches don't matter. Popularity doesn't matter. Just so-called successes don't matter. But every time I've responded to something, every time I've reacted to something, every time I've mishandled something, every time I have allowed my conscience to be pricked, because I have kind of marred the integrity of my core belief, all of that registers in my chitta. So we need to work on this. And this is the day, which other day than other than these, that we can explore and introspect. Bhagwan Baba was an embodiment of integrity. There is really no other way for me to emphasize. There are so many instances where I can tell you what we can learn from him. Baba, took us once to an old lady's house in Chennai, who was a devotee of Baba, and she was showing pictures of her pictures that Swami visited her, and she was sharing it with all of us. And Swami told her, tell your stories to these boys. They are just buffaloes eating and sleeping and loading and unloading, as he would say. And so she shared some very beautiful stories. And one thing that stuck with me was when she said, we were all much older than Baba. And we told him, he was young, he would come home and start doing bhajans whole night, late night and all that. And we had to tell him, no, it's time for you to go to bed, Baba. This is not healthy for you. So we would forcibly send him to bed and so on. So those are all the humorous sides of it, beautiful sides of it. But then she said something very important, which is something which we can all take home. And she said, we were in Chennai. We had we had influence in the government. And so we had contacts in the British government then. And we would tell the young Baba, said, if you want to do this mission of yours, come to Chennai, stay with us. We'll get you some good contacts. We'll buy you a land here. We'll help you set up an ashram. Why don't you do this? Why are you going back to that village where even we cannot come? It gets flooded as it is today. And I speak to you, Chitravati is showing in all her fury there at Puttaparthi. So our prayers for everyone who reside there goes as well. She said, why would you want to go back to that village? What is there in that village? What can you achieve in that village? Because for the so-called people with practical knowledge and practical wisdom in the world, they didn't see this idea of how would you do this mission, so-called mission, going back to a village which is not on the map of India. There's no water to drink. There's no roads leading to that village. Literally no roads leading to that village. But Baba would say, no, that is the place. Because my mother wanted it there, I will start it there. Was it practical? Was it wise? I don't know. But what I admire there, that he believed it in his heart and he followed his heart's desire. That is the lesson you and I have to take. And to me, that is integrity. So my integrity cannot be yours. I have to ask in my heart, and only I will know this answer. Nobody else. In the depths of silence, the voice of God can be heard. So that voice of God is my conscience. Only that voice speaks to me. I can convince the whole world that my action, what I'm doing is correct. But in my silence, do I find peace with my action, my word that I spoke, or my thoughts that I've entertained? Do I find peace there? So there's something called the emotional gauge. The emotion, it gives you a direct, immediate response. There will be a sense of peace and happiness, elation. You know you're on the right track. There'll be a little disturbance, need for convincing everyone, need for seeking endorsement outside, because otherwise you're not at peace. Why did he say that? Why did she do that? And this and that. And so your emotions give you that right gauge where you are. When you're truly integrated, your emotions give you that gauge. You feel that sense of elation and peace. I know I'm on the right track, and nobody else needs to tell me that. You will know it. And you have experienced that as well. I have experienced that as well. This is not, we don't have to be avatars to experience it. But knowing that an avatar brought it back into our lives, it's so important that we take this quality of integrity. And that integrity was never compromised by Swami. What he believed, he never compromised on that. It is not easy to start a university in a God-forsaken village, a university, and run it in par with the top international standards of education, which it is today. And it was from the very first day. That was never compromised. And give it free. How many thoughts of compromise may have entered his mind, or people might have said, Swami, it is all nice, but it is not possible to run the ashram. How can we run how do we pay the salaries? How do we do this? How do we do that? And so-called All the problems may have been presented to him. I've been myself a witness of these. But he would say, all of that will fall in place. Follow the heart. Follow the heart. There is magic in these teachings, my dear brothers and sisters. If there are youngsters in this group listening, or if you're listening to this afterwards, please pay attention to the value and the power of integrity. The reason why we don't do what we don't achieve what we set out in life, and we don't find that eventually in our lives, and we get into a state of dissatisfaction, which is why we keep running from one guru to another, one organization to another. We keep doing all this drama outside, is because internally we have kind of lost the integrity. The soul of our lives, if you will, has been marred. So ask yourself, what is your swadharma? Swa means self, dharma is action. What is your action? What is your calling in life? Ask. The answer may not be very clear, but take those steps towards answering whatever feels right, and you will know it. Eventually, it will come. Integrity, a great lesson. Then comes gratitude. You say, how did you learn gratitude from Swami? I mean, whom is Swami thanking? Isn't he the God, the avatar? We have a very incomplete idea of gratitude. Gratitude is perhaps the king among attitudes, if you will. Gratitude is an expression of deep contentment. Gratitude is an expression of allowing that integrity to flow without any hindrance. Gratitude is an expression of humility, modesty, thanksgiving. You don't need to be grateful to someone else. You just need to have the attitude of thanksgiving. How many times in a day do we thank for things that we have? Grateful, rather, for the things that we have. How many times do we thank for the air that we breathe? Or do we take that for granted? Well, not anymore, thanks to COVID. We don't take it for granted. We cannot take it for granted, right? It brought us all down to our knees in spite of all the technologies. One little biff of air brought us all to our knees. How many of us are grateful for the sunlight that bathes our skin, keeps us alive? How many of us are grateful for the heart that beats and the opportunities that are given to us in the form of a loving family? If not a loving family, something else. There is always reasons to be thankful for. Baba would playfully tell us, when he was teaching us these lessons of gratitude and thanksgiving, he said, don't be like the tongue inside the mouth, because when you have 32 teeth, I guess, I hope I got the number right, one falls. And he says the tongue will always go in search of that and keep playing only with that missing hole. The tongue will keep on doing, and you will always wonder, when is that one tooth going to come back? When is that one tooth going to come back? Whereas you have so many other teeth. Well, he used that analogy for us to take home this lesson that we have always reasons to look at the one thing that could be missing, and that one thing missing may not even be very important, but we give it importance and we say, oh my God, why is that alone not come? We're not thankful. We don't even say thank you for everything else, but why not that? We just concentrate on, oh, when is that going to come? Why am I not tall like somebody else? Why am I not fair like somebody else? Why am I not rich like so-and-so? Why am I can't sing like so-and-so? Why can't I be like so-and-so? Why can't I do this like? We always look for what we are not, what we don't have. And we can't, and say, oh gosh, when will it come? What mantra can I chant for that to come? But there are so many things that we have taken for granted that's around us. Are we being grateful for that? The next time, God forbid, you cut a little, make a little, something happens to your finger and you had to put a Band-Aid, God forbid, you will know how important that finger is when you try to soap your body, or when you try to use it and you want to keep it free from water. You know how important, suddenly you will miss using that finger because you took it for granted. Am I grateful? And that gratefulness That's thanksgiving, which will be part of my main session with God. If that is not the attitude, if that's not the umbrella in which my life functions, then I'm missing it, because that is the secret for growth. Contentment is the power and the energy that provides growth. And Swami was content with his giving darshan for 5 people. He was content giving darshan for 50 people. He was content when he had a lot of spare time. He was writing. He was constantly engaged in his mission from day one. He was not waiting. Oh, let 10,000 people come, then I will give a grand darshan, or I will start giving speeches only when after some crowd comes. He never did that. He was following his heart's desire. That integrity found its expression fearlessly, courageously, with all glamour and glory in every humble act of his. If there were 5 devotees with him, then he would go to each one and say, what are you eating? What are you cooking? Go under the tree, sit down with them. And you've heard stories perhaps from many people who visited his ashram in the 40s, 50s and 60s, where there were very few around Baba. Was he a less of an avatar then? No. And so that is a sign of gratitude, contentment, thanksgiving. And then you allow the universe to orchestrate even bigger plans for you, and you get more opportunities to say thanks. But if we start complaining on the one thing that is missing, then we are attracting only more and more opportunities to complain, because that is what I'm training my mind to do. We complain on Monday mornings. So when Monday morning comes, even on a holiday, we feel a little blue, because we have trained our mind to feel good on a Monday morning, perhaps for some of us. And therefore, that is what we train. Whatever we train is what reality we create around us. So gratitude, let us bring that into our lives. Feel closer to Bhagwan Baba. Selflessness. Selflessness. This is one of the hardest lessons I've had to face and learn, and Maya and I continue learning this lesson of selflessness, where we learn to take the I out of the equation. If you have posted questions to your moderator, see your question. If there is an I in it, ask a question without an I and see. You would say, then it doesn't make sense to me. If it's not about me, then I don't care. That's the whole problem. Somehow we have created this mindset that everything has to be about me. If it is not useful to me, then why should I do? People ask me many times, the Bhagavad Gita teaching, we never understand. What is the use of doing an action and not expecting a reward from that action? If there is no reward, what is the point in doing that action? If that is the attitude, then our focus is on the reward of the action. What am I getting out of this? And in that focus of what is supposed to be in the future, I lose the magic of being in the present, and the excellence in my action is compromised, because in the present, my focus is not here. My focus is, what is this going to get me in the future? And so I compromise the present. Selflessness is, don't worry about what I am getting out of this. Remove the I out of the equation. Focus on the cause. Focus on the work at hand. Focus on the need of the hour. Don't ask the question, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh, why am I being tested? What about my sadhana? What is my practice going on? And he should not touch me. I should not go into that vibration. This is bad. That is good. We spend a miserable amount of time worrying about things all related to the I. And guess what? We haven't figured what that I is. We haven't figured. One of the irony of selflessness is identity crisis. We find it hard to be selfless because we don't know what that I is. Because we are living an assumed I. A name was given to this I, Sundar. A culture was given to this I, culture from India, Hinduism, and so on and so forth. A system of education was dumped on this I, a Western system of education. Sundar was raised. Sundar was raised with all of these assumptions. But did Sundar get a chance to ask, who am I? Do you take a chance to ask yourself, who am I really? Am I Sundar? Am I Srijit? Am I Raghavan? Am I Maya? Am I Lakshmi? Am I whatever a name is? Ask yourself, am I just that? Or is it something more? And that lack of identity is what results in selfishness. So I'm clinging to who I think I am, and therefore I'm unable to let go in this concept of selflessness. But if I truly understand who I am, then selflessness presents itself to us. Why? Because that I am in me is not different from the I am in you. That is why in Swami's work, in true selflessness has to reflect every act, every thought, every word has to be in unity, in love. Because the I am is only seeing I am out there. There is no he said this and she said this and I am this and you are that. We miss the whole teaching of Swami. So selfless service that Swami is talking about is to learn the secret of this enormous power that gets released when I remove I from the equation. These are things that we need to think about. We can't finish it in an hour session, but I'm opening the mind for myself and you in the satsang. Selflessness, where the self is not the person is not of importance. The cause is important. The principle is at stake, not the person. I will not compromise on my principles, which is why I go back, this is connected to the integrity. They are all interconnected. So I go back to integrity. Rama didn't worry about how comfortable he was or how easy it was and all his life. His life went through the most rigorous parts of life, right? Banished from a kingdom. You think it's easy? You and I lose a little bit of our savings. Our foundations in spirituality shake, and we are ready to compromise everything to get back that savings which we lost. But Rama lost his whole kingdom, and yet his principle was never compromised. That is why a million years later, you and I are sitting and chanting his name and comparing every avatar to him, Sai Rama. Selflessness. It was not about him at all. It is about the principle that is being tested at that moment. And if that principle can be maintained, then everything else falls in place, which it did. His whole time that he ruled the kingdom later, called Ram Rajya, became the most ideal time in the history of mankind. So think about that. By being selfless, you actually are allowing the universe's universal I to flow through you. And therefore, by being an instrument, by emptying myself of or what I think I am, the one I truly am begins to express itself. And great work is automatically achieved. And the last one, but not the least, is love. It'll be incomplete to end the satsang. And I'll do that in a few minutes because we'll open it up for some Q&A. It'll be incomplete if we talk about Swami's teachings, his life, his actions, and reflections on his life without this magical word. Because he was, I believe in my heart, and I truly express it, he was an embodiment of love. Love doesn't mean simply he was always sweet to all of us. No. Like the rose plants that need trimming. When do you trim the rose plants? Just before winter hits it, or just after winter, when spring is going to come and ready to bloom, you first go and trim it. One might say, why are you trimming the rose plant? Bringing it down back to just 6 inches above the ground. Or why are you trimming it just before winter? It'll die. But it is your love that makes it trim. And thus you will find that as spring comes into summer, the rose plant even blooms even more better with much, much more flowers. So contemplate on the meaning of love. When you get the I out of the way, then unconditional love begins to flow. Baba's love was unconditional. It wasn't based on conditions. There was no he is mine, therefore I love him. There was no she belongs to me and therefore I love her. There was no such thing as I'm loving you all so much. What am I going to get out of you all? There was nothing like that. no expectations, no conditions placed before the love. There is no such thing as I'm doing so much for you all. What are you doing for me? There was never like that. That is love. Anything else in the Vedanta, they call it raga, attachments, which is also part of love. It's a beauty of its own. But when you enter the spiritual dimension of Sai and you want to practice love, then it becomes unconditional love. And in that love, you need to express pruning in your thoughts, words, and deeds. That is part of growth. But with Swami, I saw that, experienced that love. When I jumped through the rings of fire on December 25th, 1980, and one of the rings got stuck in my body, there were hundreds of devotees around me. They all froze because at that moment, from the depths of their unconscious mind, action didn't spring. They didn't jump to help me out. They were like shocked. The only person who acted there was Swami. He jumped from the jhula. He came running towards me, pulled me out, even as I was running towards. The point was, what I'm trying to say is the one person who acted at that moment when you really need it was one who was selfless. He wore silk robes. He could have his robes could have caught on fire. He could have sent so many others to stop this from happening, expressing his omniscience and omnipresence. Unconditional love is mysterious. It's powerful. It transforms not only your life, but everybody's life around you. It's not easy to practice. But when you grasp the idea of selflessness, then unconditional love begins to flow. And that love changes the world. Not that it needs changing, but that journey, in that journey of allowing unconditional love to find expression in thoughts, where there is no judgment, where you accept everybody. That is that person's karma. I have no right to comment on why somebody did this and ascribe intentions because of hearsay or what I read or oh yeah, he did this because of this. How do we know? Nobody except that person will know, right? When you do something, only you know why. Some people understand it. Most people may not understand this, but you know why. When you deal with your teenage children, I guess we don't have kids, but when you deal with your teenage children, they say, you just don't understand who I am. You don't get it. But you say, I know. Go to your room. And you know that they don't like you, but you know that you're doing it out of love. So the idea there is no judgment. In unconditional love, there is no judgment. There is acceptance of situations, of people as they are. And then you allow your values to find expression without marring the integrity of who you are. And thus there is this harmony that we call life. We can all, you and I, we can all never become the same. Never, because that whole beauty of life is gone, right? There's no one single tree that looks like exactly the other tree, even though they are from the same species. No one human being looks exactly like the other one. That's built into that. That's the beauty of that creation. That's the beauty of the dance of Nataraja. But so each one of us have to express our uniqueness, and that uniqueness be unique, not be somebody else playing that uniqueness. So, my dear sisters and brothers, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. These are the lessons, these are the moments, and I think we are entering an era where we need to move away from Swami gave me ring, Swami gave me watch, Swami cured me of this, Swami cured my uncle of this, Swami gave this vibhuti, and this happened and that happened. We need to move. Of course, we are welcome to listen to those beautiful leelas, but we also need to widen the horizon of accepting Swami's teachings and beginning to apply. What am I going to learn from Swami's life? What am I learning from his teachings? How am I transforming myself? How can I be known as a devotee of Sai, not by the world, but by my own children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? How are they going to remember me? Are they just going to say, oh, okay, he was a Sai devotee? Okay. Are they going to shrug, or are they going to say, wow, what made him live like that? What made her live like that? My grandmother and my grandfather. What inspired them to do this? And let them listen to the stories of Sai through your life, through your deeds. That is how we leave a legacy behind. So may Swami guide all of us, every moment of our lives, into leaving a rich legacy for our future generations, for ourselves. And in our own transformation, we begin to build the golden age. And thus the golden age will present itself in our consciousness. So be it. Thank you. And so now I will, it's 10:05. I believe we have about 10:40 or so. So I will ask Brother Shri to take it from here and ask me a couple of questions. I'll see how Swami guides me. Thank you once again.
Sadam, sir. No, it's incredibly thought-provoking discussion here. You started, with this question of what future generations will ask. So I'll take the liberty of asking questions entirely from that perspective, because I think it's invaluable, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. As an SSC guru, we often get these kinds of questions from the younger children. So let's rewind to the very beginning. And you asked with this question that the future generations will prompt you with, which is this question of so what? You were very close to Swami physically. You had all these different experiences, really, and you said your thoughts, you said Swami made a note of saying, not just my life is my message, but he said, your life is my message, and the way that you present yourself, your thoughts, perceptions, and your way of life. And you use the words that it not only presents a great responsibility, but a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. But my question is, why should we take advantage of this opportunity at all? I mean, isn't knowing him enough? We say that he'll protect us, he'll take care of us. Swami also says, you take a step towards me, I'll take 100 steps. Why can't I just listen to my bhajans on my way to work and expect him to take the next 100 steps?
Good question. And that's why I said, if you're happy just having snacks and not a meal in a day, then you're perhaps good with just bhajans. It's okay to be like that. If that was the case, then Krishna would have told Arjuna, why do you have to fight? I'm your best friend. You have surrendered to me. Because that's what Arjuna did, right? In the battlefield, what did he do? He laid down his bows and arrows. He says, I surrender to you, Krishna. Teach me. I don't know what is good and bad anymore. Teach me. And did Krishna said, okay, my son, you have come to me. Now I'll take care of you. Stop fighting. Let's go home, discuss it over a cup of chai. Maybe they had herbal tea then, I don't know. But he didn't, right? He put Arjuna back on the path of war, on the path of action. The greatest lessons were taught, the greatest examples of devotion that Swami would often show us was the example of Arjuna, a man of action, a warrior in the field, learning to face life, not shirk away from it, with devotion in his heart, and all these values that I just talked about. And so was Hanuman. Both are examples of great devotion and surrender. But their devotion and surrender was not complacent. They said, Hanuman didn't say, who am I to jump the ocean and carry Ram's mission? I am just a monkey. There are Vanaras, there is Jambavan, there is Sugriva, and all these great people. Who am I to do? Let me just simply sit and chant Ram once in a while. That is, Rama will take care of his mission. Who am I? This is complacency, presenting itself as devotion. This is how we fool ourselves, I would say, if you allow me to say that. But if we say, you know what, the fact that he's in my consciousness and I feel driven to do something, I want to play my role. I want to have this opportunity. Like the young squirrel in Rama's story who said, I also want to put some stones. So it is not what we achieve with those actions. It is just the attitude of being part of a bigger mission that makes life, that helps us sanctify our lives. There's a beautiful story, an analogy, I guess, that I read on the internet. It's about 3 men building a brick wall. So Jesus happens to pass by and he asks the first man, what are you doing? And the first man curtly responds, can't you see, I'm just building, I'm earning my daily livelihood. I'm here, I'm stuck with this work and I'm just doing this because I have to. Jesus passes on and goes to the next person. What are you doing it? What are you doing here? He says, I'm building a wall so I can earn for my family and provide the meal. I'm so grateful for this job. And he goes to the third person. And the third person says, I've been blessed because I've been given an opportunity to build a church. So we can carry on with our lives saying, oh, I don't know, I've got too many things to do, I don't have time for this. Or we can take everything that we do and convert that into a means of worship. So why do we need to do this? If you're asking, making assumption that this is something separate from our everyday life, I want to remind you that this is not separate from my everyday lives. Can my work, can my attitude to my work, can my attitude to my children, how I handle stresses at work, can I be an example to my children, to my family, to my near and dear ones, to my friends, to my team players at work? Do they see a difference? How are you able to handle all this? How are you able to treat it with equanimity? Can I be that? And so that is the idea. When you're doing that, then Swami begins, his teachings automatically begin to flow through you. And actually, you are enriching your own life. So why wouldn't you want self-empowerment and self-enrichment in your life by allowing a universal Sai teachings to flow through you? Hopefully, I answered that.
Right. No, I think you've hit on the higher reasons why you would want to at least try to inculcate some of these messages. I think one of the related questions here is that's come in is anubhuti, or is experience a glue to remain connected to Sai, or is it a passing cloud in sadhana?
Experience is everything. When you say experience, you're probably talking of a dream experience, or a vibhuti manifestation, or a healing as an experience, or a vision as an experience. Those are experiences as well, but your everyday life, everything is based on experience. And so experience is everything. It gets you closer and closer. The more closer you get, spiritually, mentally, physically, and you allow these values to find their expressions in your life, your experience of life changes. And those experiences become foundations for better experience in life. And each experience gives you room for further and greater experiences that open up your consciousness. So to me, experience is everything. That is the proof of you having a direct contact with God. There is no such thing as a passing experience. And then you're stuck to a philosophy. Philosophy has no meaning if it doesn't translate itself into experience. That is what this sadhana is all about. I believe in something. I want to translate that into my everyday life, and then an experience presents itself. In other words, my life begins to change around me, and that spurs me on for greater transformation. Paroksha Anubhuti, Aparoksha Anubhuti. Adi Shankara has written a beautiful text. If some of you are interested in Vedanta, you should pursue that. He talks the ultimate experience as Aparoksha Anubhuti. Anubhuti is experience. Aparoksha is first-hand experience, not borrowed experience. Now, all that I told you today is a borrowed experience. You are listening to me having my experience. But what is your experience? What is your learning? So you have to go back to your first-hand experience and draw only those experiences truly retain and provide inspiration and courage and strength in the hour of need. Somebody else's story, somebody else's experience is good entertainment, good listening, good satsang, but beyond that, it doesn't take you very far. You have to open doors of your heart. And may be easy, may not be easy. But so experience is everything.
Yes, sir. So would you say in this context that these kinds of satsangs, the function and purpose is for you to kind of walk away so that you can do certain things that you will actually get the experience that you're kind of seeking? Is that the reason behind the satsang?
Exactly. Very well said. Exactly. And this is not my words. I mean, Adi Shankara again in Bhaja Govindam, he would say, Satsangatve Nitsangatvam. Be in satsang, but meditate alone. From satsanga, then go back to your aloneness. Nitsangatvam. Nitsangatve Nischalatatvam. Nischalatatve Nirmohatvam. Nirmohatve Jivan Mukti. Or Nirmohatve Nischalatatvam. Nischalatatve Jivan Mukti. In other words, you go to that aloneness. In that aloneness, begin to contemplate on what you heard. And how does that apply to you, whether it does or whether it does not, or maybe a little bit of that applies to you. And then once you begin to implement that, then it transforms itself into, oh, wow, now I see the light of what it means. And so this is how you can't get everything at one shot, but one step by step, beginning to incorporate. Then you begin to understand the power of that experience.
Okay. So if I'm able to piece this together, we listen to a satsang, it gives us some motivation for action on our own. Then we're able to take some action, and we're able to get some experience of truth. And we're
Yes.
able to get truth only after the practice, only after the attempt or practice of what we understand. Okay.
Yes. And that experience of yours becomes your first-hand proof of whether it worked, didn't work, and why it didn't work. So you get to, it's like a laboratory, right? You get to study the pros and cons and develop your own path.
Excellent. So I want to go again back to where we, I think the second or third piece that you started talking about an analogy of the Brahman or the Godhead as the sun. And, you said, of course, it's so vast that it's almost incomprehensible. And that, we could identify with the ray because it's kind of closer. And I think that you used that as an analogy between like the Godhead and the human form. So, but you did also say that, and again, sir, I'm asking this from the perspective of a youth that would have so please don't take it any other way. So, you said that you identify Swami as the embodiment of this Brahman. But what is convincing you that that is in fact the case?
Great question. There's nothing to take it the other way. I love questions like these. Why? Because there is an approach called not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. Then what is? There is no answer to what is. So what is Brahman? There is truly no answer for what is Brahman. But I can say it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's none of this. So Swami was a phenomenon. I've been calling him this for a very long time. To me, more than a label like an avatar or God, I usually use the word phenomenon. He's a phenomenon that didn't fit into our human being category. He didn't fit into normal thinking patterns, normal behavior patterns, normal everything that you and I think of as being normal human being. He just didn't fit into that definition. Everything that he did seemed to be, wow, what is that? Where did that come from? Where did that kind of approach come from? Where did that thought even come from? So think of a young village boy at the age of 14 deciding to spread Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, and not giving it up for the rest of his life, and actually converting his little village into a super spiritual center, a world pilgrimage center. How does that happen? So to me, I clung to that one little aspect of Swami and said, okay, this must be something. This must be that dimension of this Brahman people are talking about, or what I read in the books. This must be that trait in his personality that's opening doors to that infinite way of life that can find its expression through me as well. And therefore I could relate to that. That's what I meant by when I saw him as an embodiment of that supreme intelligence. Because for me, there is no other prototype. There is no other role model other than somebody whom I can see. It's one thing you read about it. One thing you listen and see videos, but then one thing when you actually see a person in action and live with him day in and out, and see him expressing these, then you begin to wonder, what is this? This is great. He must be having. One of the greatest lessons I learned there was he's sitting in his little room day in and day out, which is 10 feet by 10 feet, maybe no windows. Windows are practically closed all the time. One little 100-watt bulb on the ceiling, and he's building visions. He is there talking about mission, which seems to be very impractical, like a dreamer, perhaps, like somebody who's deluded, but yet that vibrancy, that expression, none of that ever failed. And so I became convinced, for the lack of any other way, that he was tapping into a resource within him that was unending in its capacity to give. He was not waiting for this to happen and that to happen. He seemed to be drawing unending source of energy from within. And for me, as a young boy watching that, I would be like, it would drive me crazy, sitting on a single straight back chair the whole day, reading people's letters of complaints and I want this and I want that. And then on top of that, having such a positive attitude, such a powerful, courageous, fearless attitude of going ahead and doing things, one-pointed, single-pointed, austere lifestyle. To me, that for the lack of any other better example, to me, that at this point is the best example of somebody who represents the ability to have tapped into the infinite. And so therefore, I call him, I say he's the embodiment of Brahman. So thank you for that question.
No. From what I gather, though, everything that you've just described is a matter of your own experience, leading
absolutely.
You, not this, not this, not this. And it's up to us to kind of do the things. But how, you were able to physically see Swami going through this process, embodying this. How do people with no physical experience of Swami go through the same process of not this, not this, not this, not this, and reach the conclusion that you have?
They don't have to. They don't have to. That's another reason why I don't label Swami as God and say everybody has to. I cannot push my faith down your throat or anybody's throat. This is where we miss when we go into organized, dogmatic, religious attitude of everybody should believe he's God. It's impossible in a spiritual path to take my personal faith and push it down your throat. It's impossible. Almost, I would even go to the extent of saying it's a sin to do that, if for the lack of any other term, because that is not how it works. My parents were great devotees of Murugan and Shiva, but by the time I was 13 and 14, I was sick of that idea itself, because they were constantly trying, they had any bad intentions, of course, and all of that is coming to bear rich dividends to me later now, but at that moment I was completely overwhelmed, and I want to run away from anything spiritual, anything ritualistic, anything religious. I just didn't want to do anything. I wanted to go and join the Pune Institute of Film. And so it was a complete rebound. So the more we try to push our faith into somebody, the more they're going to recoil, because that is not the experience. And even if they are polite to us, the real transformation doesn't happen. I will tell you one thing that will help. When we become role models of what we talk, then people get the first-hand experience of one person being a role model. Let's say you become the role model of Sai's teaching. Then people say, I've not seen Sai Baba, but I've seen you, I've heard you, and therefore I believe in Sai Baba. So you therefore now become the conduit of that energy, because you begin to represent everything that you speak, everything that he spoke, and people begin to see that reflection. Just like these rays of the sun, I cannot see the sun, but I can understand the warmth of the sun through the ray that is entering my home. Do I make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So, I think we continued this discussion as again, going back. So I'm going to keep going back to where we left on certain parts and just clarify each part. You made the statement that the avatar doesn't come to add himself to our altar. The avatar comes to set an example. And see, right up till now, we've kind of described Swami as and identifying him as this Brahman. Mm-hmm. But then you're saying at the same time that we should kind of look at him in the form of the right. But how can we reconcile those two things? Because anytime he performs like some sort of magnanimous act, you look at building a hospital within a year of declaration, like these things that just seem, he must have just snapped his fingers. And it looks like there was a year of work, but everyone knows that within a year, that's impossible, for anyone else. So how can we reconcile that? And what can we do to take him, more as an example for us to follow, rather than just relegating him to this idea of God, he's God. Maybe we could pray to him and,
Yeah, I don't think I don't see these as two different things. I don't see him as being God as different from him as being a human being who set an example of how we can actually live a very empowered life, because he set that example of being, I have no education. So imagine if Baba had come out and done all of this with a Harvard graduation. What would you and I said? Okay, he's great. He's got a Harvard graduate. He can do that. What about me? I'm just come from a poor college. We'll still have reasons to compare why we are not him. Let's say he was born to a very rich guy in a multinational, whatever, or CEO of a big company, or in a metropolitan town. He was a son of a rich landlord, and he was out and he set out to do this mission. We will say, oh, he had a great bank balance and he had a good account to start with. I don't have that. But look at where he started. I have no education. I have no money. I have no place to even start with. And look what he built. He said, give me nothing and I'll build everything. Now, we get tempted. And we get tempted because we want to justify where we are. We get tempted to say, oh, you are God, you can do all that. And therefore, I like to go back to my miserable state of being a human being, because that's the comfort zone I like to be. And though I look for every justification to say why I cannot do that, oh no, I am just a human being. He is God. He waves his hand and things happen. But for those of us who lived with him, we know how hard he worked. And that is why I bring those values of selflessness and all of that, is because he was not putting himself into the picture. What am I getting out of it? Was not his cause at all, was not his concern at all. What are people going to get? How can we give the best treatment to the people? How can we? His vision was free medicine. And he would often tell us, you take one thing and selflessly engage, the universe will put all his resources and come and serve you. And that's exactly what we saw happening. Not because he was a god and he waved his hand and got things done by miracle and some mysterious ways that are somehow outside our comfort zone or outside our reach. He actually showed it, that it is just like I do, you can do it too. We need to learn the idea of selflessness. We need to learn the concept of unconditional love. We need to learn and adopt this attitude of gratitude and so on. And once we begin to do that, then suddenly you will open into a dimension where you allow universal energies to flow. We don't do that. Why? Because we close the doors. We make an assumption. I am poor me. I am just a devotee. I don't want anything. I don't know anything. We put a cloak of humility, thinking that's humility, but that's not. That's low self-esteem. We have created this comfort zone of being in a low self-esteem, which is what Arjuna was before the war. And guess what? Krishna didn't speak the first 1.5 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna doesn't speak at all. Why? Because Arjuna is full of, I am poor, I am confused, I don't want to fight, I don't want this, I don't want that, you know everything. Krishna keeps quiet. And then Krishna comes up and says, he literally whips up the warrior and says, shame on you for even speaking like this, get up and fight, and invokes the divinity in Arjuna. So watching an avatar act should inspire us to live like him, follow those footsteps. If a young village boy can do this, why can't I? But then that means it's going to keep me up at night. It's going to take me out of my comfort zone. I have to face all the ghosts in my closet. So my easiest way out is, Ayyo, who am I? Swami, he is God, he can do it. And then I go back into this assumed cloak of devotion. And where devotion is meant for empowerment, with examples of Hanuman and Arjuna and all of these men of actions, we have gone back to being a civilization of, Ayyo, God will do everything, who am I? I'm just enacting it, I'm dramatic perhaps. But this is our attitude internally. And devotion has made us weak and inactive. And therefore, I said, he's not come to become one more God who is going to rule over your life and decide your fate. That is our definition of God. Poor, very poor definition of God. He's come to redefine that God is, you are the God you're seeking. You are that empowered being you're seeking. So awaken. Start saying, I am God. Fear cannot enter me. So we have to bring that attitude. Otherwise, we miss the boat. We'll be waiting for the next avatar to come by, and the next, and the next. The second coming of Jesus Christ, the 10th avatar of Vishnu, the third coming of Sai Baba. This will go on. It never ends. Because we are expecting somebody else to come and fix our problems and issues, whereas we are the ones who are architects of our own destiny.
So you said this, the God we seek is the God we are. And, this is, of course, this is the highest truth that Swami is seeking to kind of help us understand. But if I'm asking from the perspective of, someone who's just being introduced, what's the proof that we are God? What's the value in understanding that even?
There is no proof. There is no proof. But there is proof that within you lies a capacity to endlessly grow. Why are you closing your door to that? And that endless growth is the journey of self-realization. See, when we talk of God realization and self-realization, we think it is a destination to reach. It is a journey. If God is infinite, if the self is infinite, where does my journey end? When can I say, aha, I've reached the end of my journey? Then that's finite. So that journey never ends. And being in that journey of ever expanding my learning, always expanding my horizons of my comfort and ability to do things, learn things, and I constantly keep expanding myself, then I am already allowing God energy to flow through me. We have the idea of God, when we say, is based on our own definitions of what God is. We think suddenly one day we are also going to become something like where we wave our hands and things will happen. It could, if you want to, if that's what you believe in. But then what happens is eventually you'll begin to believe that there is no second. Everything is part of one consciousness. And when you begin to experience that expansion of consciousness, then your acts and your words and your thoughts will automatically begin to reflect those core beliefs. And so it is that core belief system that is within you that is driving you. So if you sit back where we are and try to grasp the end, we cannot get it. We can't say, how do we know we are God? So I'm not going to take any step. It's like a Google map is giving you the directions of a 2,000-mile journey. You have not seen the end of it, but the Google map is not showing you the whole journey. It's telling you take the next right turn again and go 5 miles more. And you're just simply following directions. Eventually, you reach your destination. So if we can trust a $200 Google map or a Google app, then why not the principles of Vedanta, which is saying that you are God, which means infinite. Brahman means infinite. So you have that resource which is infinite in its capacity. Why don't you go within and start discovering that? What does that mean? And how to allow that infinite resource that you can tap into and become whatever you want in life. That's the best part of Vedantic teachings. They're not asking you to become a recluse or sannyasi. No, they're saying do whatever you want with your life. Once you tapped into that energy, it's up to you. But we start off with an assumption that money is important, socialization is important, success is important. And this is, we create crutches, thinking those crutches are going to somehow give me that life which I want. And look at everyone else who has got that. Have they got the ultimate satisfaction? I don't think so. I think when one taps into their own inner resource is when one begins to truly say, wow, there is so much more I can tap into and begin to live life.
In essence, give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what have you got to lose? You'll only end up being more empowered, more enriched. Right. So what's wrong in going that direction? Right. But if I were to tell you, worship him and he will give you and he will do that, you're developing a mindset of somehow you are weak and there is a powerful God above you who is going to determine where you go. And that is certainly not the teaching of Swami. That is certainly not the teaching of Sanatana Dharma or the Vedic Dharma. That has been wrongly misinterpreted, misused, and we have somehow got into that framework under this disguise of being devoted. Being devoted is like, he is working through me, and therefore, what is there to fear? Let me go all out and live my life all out because I am but an instrument of his peace and love. Right?
So we did receive a question exactly along these lines, which is, if we were to act on the belief that I'm God, how do I at the same time, exercise some humility and surrender to remember that he's actually the doer and I'm an instrument? Those
kind of questions come when we are still thinking in terms of he and I. If I believe I am God, then what about others? There is no other in that I am God principle. There's only one. There's one consciousness. That the ultimate I am God experience is that there is only one and there is no other. And since there is no other, there is only love. And your thoughts and your words and your deeds will express that in the form of everything that you see Swami expressing is there. Did you see Swami in a matter of pride and saying, all of you are a waste. I am the one who's going to rule the world. I am the creator. And that kind of thing doesn't happen. So there is no place for pride. Pride comes when there is actually a low self-esteem, that I somehow have to protect my ego. And so I need to protect myself. And so I put up a show that I am much more stronger than someone else. But in true God awareness, there is no someone else. It's just me. It is one Shiva's dance that has become the universe. The dancer and the dance are not separate. So Nataraja is dancing. This is Nataraja dance, and I am part of that dance. So you and I, we are all part of that one consciousness. And that opens my heart to joy and humility and love, because there is no giving and taking in that experience. If I sit back and start intellectualizing these concepts, then all these questions come. And these questions, then you ask yourself, where is it coming from? It's coming from, when I ask this from the, how can I be God? As if when I become God, my neighbor is not going to become God. When I become God in that God consciousness, all I see is only God, nothing else. And therefore, for me, everything becomes that divine principle expressing itself. There'll be no good, no bad, no evil, nothing.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful segue into our next question, which is, if it's true that there's no good, no bad, well, we have a question that says, Swami says everything's a reflection of what's inside of us. How can we then discriminate between what's good and bad in the outside world? Is there a state of no reflection? Love to have your thoughts there.
Your actions are not based on judgments. If you're basing your actions on your judgments, because I'm acting this, because I saw something bad happen, then I am entangling myself into the good bad, and I'll never be able to escape out of it. I'll be always putting off fires. If this, I have taken care of this bad happening, I've acted against this, then another bad will come up. Then I'll put that, and my whole life will be putting off fires of what I call bad. And then I wonder, what is this? There's so much bad around. Why that is happening? Because I've trained myself to look for only bad, and I'm putting off the bads. Now, the action is not based on judgment. That is the whole crux of Gita's teaching. Krishna said, you don't fight the war because somebody has done bad, and you're fighting because your job and your duty, your innermost call is being a warrior. And as a warrior, you're putting an act out. So if your inner call is to answer to something that you're not comfortable with, let's say I'm somewhere when my neighbor is ill-treating an animal, I guess, and I'm uncomfortable, I'll find an expression. Then I'll say, please, why? Can I help? Can I take care of your pet if it's really bothering you for a couple of days or so? You can therefore act in nature with that. You don't have to advise the person. You can if you want to. You follow there, not because what he's doing is bad, but because you're not finding peace by being a witness to what is happening there. And therefore, you have to follow your call and say, what am I to do with this? How can I reconcile this situation? I need to act and do something about it. And therefore, I want to simply allow my expression to find its way through my thought, word, and deed. Whether it actually happens or not is besides the point. And that's what the Gita's teaching is. Your job as a warrior is to go and fight. Whether you win the war or not, that is not your concern. Put in your best fight because you are being trained for that. And so if I find injustice in what I think as injustice, again, what you believe as injustice may not be, or evil may not be in my mind. But when I see something there, I have to say, you know what? I don't know whether that is really good or evil. At this point, I don't feel connected with that, what's happening there. And therefore, if I feel called to take some action, I will follow that call. That's why I said I use the word emotional gauge. And you would ask at the end of that day, you would ask yourself, am I feeling at peace with myself? And you will, if you have followed your heart. And so that is how we need to approach these kind of situations. Then we learn to rise above the ideas of good and evil. And yet we will be very active. But not because I'm trying to put out evil or I'm trying to do good. Good and evil are very relative. I act because I believe in a bigger cause. I see a bigger force that is driving me to action. I don't know if I made sense, but let me know.
So if I understand this correctly, the idea is not to look at the world and say, this is good, this is bad. The idea is more to follow the calling of the heart, and where that tells you to go is kind of where you move.
Let me give you a good example of Swami himself, right? Education was and still is a business. Medicine still is a business, right? For the most part. And so Swami could have raised awareness in the country and whole world about how this is bad and all of that. He could have done what you and I call being an activist. Could have encouraged us to be activists and go out and tell everybody. And he could have done that, right? That was one option. The other option was, instead of cursing the darkness, he lit a lamp. He said, I don't know about the world. I'm going to set an example. I'm going to start a university which is free education. I'm going to start a super specialty hospital that offers all treatments free of cost. He has lit a lamp. that lamp will find its own energy as the generations come, and eventually everything will definitely follow. That's just my belief. But look at what he did. So when you see an evil out there, rather than fight that evil out there, because then that will continue forever, you say, how can I replace that with a good here? So that is, if some historian will draw these lines at when the World War II was about to be on the verge, a little lamp was lit in Puttaparthi. And Swami writes this letter to his brother: I have taken a mission. I will come to light the lamp of love in everybody's heart. So a little lamp was lit. The world was breaking apart. But as an avatar, he could have stopped all that, but he lit a lamp. It's teaching us the approach to righteous life is being a role model, being an example of what you want others to be, not by correcting others, because that will never end. If I start putting end to evil around the world, I'll need 100 lifetimes, and yet I won't be able to do it. But if I see an evil there and I say, I don't want that in my life, let me be, therefore, instead of cursing the darkness, light a lamp. Let me be an example to me, myself, and my children. Then you begin to light that lamp. So think of it that way.
Yeah, well, that was a beautiful example.
Thank you.
Okay. So would like to go ahead and go back to the original talk. And of course we mentioned this idea of a spiritual meal, and not snacking, but having the spiritual meal, and having me and Swami time. And you described the principle of part-time devotion, but is not just having a single meal a day, is that not part-time devotion? Could you explain the difference between part-time devotion and full-time devotion?
Well, when I said single meal a day, is that one meal that provides nutrition for the rest of the day, right? The single meal is that one meal that you have, one nutritious meal that you have, that is what keeping you alive throughout the day. It is that same thing. If I have that one session with God, at least to begin with, that one time where I am completely touching my source within, and then when I come out to live the day, that energy from that I've got from that being in touch with my source is going to energize my thoughts and words throughout the day. So then I am in that consciousness. So that is like a full-time thing. But if I never get a chance to go deep inside and have that contact with the source, then I'm just flirting with at the peripheral thoughts of God here and there whenever I feel like. And that is where most of us get caught in, because we think that is enough, and that is not enough. And so we say, I've been 20 years devotee of Baba, I have 40 years devotees of Baba, and 30 interviews, 40 interviews, and all of that. And yet the true transformation doesn't happen. You're still watching the same television shows, you're still gossiping about the same things, and the same little things that upsets your neighbor upsets you. Nothing really has changed. Why? Because I never had that nutritional meal. So at least as a first step, I need to go back home. And that going back home is my session with God. Whatever that session means to each one of us, we have to figure that out. That's why I said it could be meditation, it could be puja, it could be just simply sitting in silence. We have to find that time for ourselves, where it is just me and my inner space and my God within. And my definition of God then will begin to constantly change and evolve as I keep going in and discovering the meaning of that God. And as that discovery starts giving me energy and the energy to run my everyday life, then I go back feeling more enriched. I come out feeling more empowered. That's what I meant by one meal a day.
Yes, sir. So then my question is then, so are you saying that this, you said that that one meal a day provides you that time with you and Swami really connecting, provides you that nutrition to go on for the rest of the day. Are you saying that there are certain understandings that are unveiled in that time that you have your one-on-one with Swami that end up spilling over to the rest of the day?
Absolutely. They'll become your anchor. They will be your core beliefs that will actually begin to empower every other act of yours through the day. Just like your one meal, when you have one nutritious meal, it's going to last you 24 hours and it's a different matter. We end up eating 3 or 4, but all we need is one nutritious meal, and that's going to end up giving us energy and burn fuel and enough fuel for our bodies. So same thing for the spirit as well. one session, whatever that session is, it's not the time that is taken, it's the quality. Just like it's not the amount of food you eat, is the quality of food, the quality of time that you take. We don't respect ourselves enough these days that we take time off for our own selves. We are so caught up in trying to fit into the society. We're so caught up in being a parent. We're so caught up in being a brother. We're so caught up in being a team worker or a productive person. And we're so caught up in being everything that we want to project out there. Where is it time for me and myself to find what is my mission in life? What is my inner calling? Who am I? What is this inner source? Where is my connection with God? Where is my one-on-one connection with God? Where is that? So I need time to go there and be there with myself. Then and only then will I find that true energy empowering. And that's when we talk of experience. Then my experience of every day, my reactions in every day, my whole quality of life, the way I perceive things, the way I talk to people, the way I perceive people, everything begins to change automatically.
Yeah. Wonderful. So now we go to the segment of your talk when we were talking about the keywords. And we'll start with health. And we had a question that came in about, it's good to be aware that certain habits are obviously harmful, but and I think you broke my heart there when you mentioned sweet, or not just mine, but several when you mentioned sweets. But do we have any examples of how what your approach is to change a habit that may be difficult for many of us? I'm certainly an example, but if you could give us some tips.
Well, there are just simply speaking, there are two approaches based on your age. I would think, and of course, when we talk of food habits, especially, we have to consider our age and medical reasons and so on and so forth, because many of people who are listening here might be on medications and things like that. So there are two options. One is, if you're young and healthy, if you're simply just prone to addictions, then take an axe and chop it off, cold turkey, as they call it. Just walk away from it, just like that. I know it's easier said than done. And that's where company and satsangs and all help, because then you're in a company which says, all right, man, good for you. Let's try and keep that for some time. And the other one is, all right, I can't do it overnight. I'm going to systematically break it down over this amount of time. So you say, by the next birthday of Swami, this is going to be out of my system. I'm not going to be touching sugar anymore. Sugar is a drug. We are all addicted to it. It's in the last 100 years, this has happened, and it's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, because everybody is doing it, we don't even feel guilty. It is one of the biggest and the most dangerous drugs, because we don't see it. We say everybody, oh, drug addiction for children. No, every one of us are addicted by this drug called sugar. It's found its way into more than 75% of the food that we eat today. So how am I going to backtrack and say, okay, no more? This temple cannot afford to have that drug anymore, because it's destroying the very essence of spirituality in me, because by making the body diseased, all metabolic disorders. And so don't get me started on that, because I can go on and on. However, if you're young and healthy, take an axe and start chopping off the roots of the tree. Say, all right, no more this, no more this, no more this, and start going slowly towards it. You will find that your brain works much better. You're far more creative, far more alert. Your sleep quality improves. And there's so many host of wonderful health benefits that you get when you avoid a simple thing like sugar, for example. And I'm not just talking sugar, I'm talking of simple carbs and everything that has very high glycemic index. We are all so addicted. It's unbelievable how we are now using religious festivals to eat more sugar. That's why I said Swami doesn't eat sugar, but on his birthday, everyone will have cakes and ice creams. Oh, Swami won't mind. I'm like, there's just another excuse to get more addicted. Isn't spiritual festivals for us to free ourselves from conditions? No, we get more conditions. Shivratri night, that's why I said, because I've seen it, right? We all have seen this in action. Oh, people have to eat. Why? At the middle of the night, who eats? The idea was to give up your sleep and focus on God. But now, because I'm focusing God, I end up eating more. You're better off perhaps sleeping on Shivratri night than eating pizzas and drinking Coke and tea and coffee the whole night. You're better off than that. So it's not easy, but we have to become aware. In Sai circles, in every circle, in the name of spirituality, we actually end up abusing the body, and we call it spiritual. It is not so. It is not so. And to me, Swami was a fantastic example. On a very hot afternoon, he would be so hot upstairs in his room. There's no air condition there in Prashantanilayam. He would have watermelon because that will cool his system. Guess how many watermelons you and I would eat at that time? I would have at least half a watermelon. He would take 3 or 4 pieces. That's all. A tiny fork, a small little bowl, 4 or 5 pieces of watermelon. He will tell me it cools the body. Good. Only 4 or 5 pieces? That's what the body needs. But we have trained it far more. We have abused it. We have created an addictive pattern of behavior, and it's caught on. It's just catching on to our lives. Newborn babies, the moment they come, everybody puts sugar in the baby's mouth. I'm like, my God, what are we doing to ourselves? We have become a generation of addictive. I'm sorry to paint this picture, but we have to be aware and awaken from that slumber and say, all right, let's take charge of our lives. And let's, as a family, decide how much sugar we're going to have, why do we need it, and start cutting down. So
is this just a matter, brother? Is this just a matter of awareness? To change it, or is it? I guess each family, like your suggestion, each family would maybe come to a different, resolution on how much to cut, and especially when you have children and other things. How can we convince them? And how can, we talked about these different, and I'll just refer to one of our questions that came in here, where we're not just talking about health, we're also talking about integrity, gratitude, the key values that you have outlined. How is it that we can help, our children retain some of these lessons?
A very simple answer is by being a role model. If you are youthful and young, as you grow old and you're able to do things and you make the youngster wonder, wow, I want to be like that. So when I was 20, and there was this lady called Indra Devi, was a Sai devotee. She wrote a book called Sai Yoga, which is no longer in publication, but nevertheless, she was 72 when she taught us for a very brief period. I went and learned from her. But what struck me at that age was, when I was 70, I should be doing that. And that stayed with me. So I think the best way is role model, being an example. Now, your parents cannot be indulging in sweets and telling the children don't eat too much sweets. It just doesn't work like that. So we have got ourselves in such a big soup as far as health and all of that is concerned, that we have to dig ourselves out. But that doesn't mean everybody gives up hope. And therefore, I could be a voice in the wilderness, but nevertheless, it's still a voice. So I will keep sharing whenever I can. I do that through my own institution and so on. We start making people more and more aware that spirituality is incomplete with a sick body. You cannot progress after a point. That experience doesn't become your experience. You just then, therefore, very conveniently, we become philosophers, not ones who experience it. Those are people who believe a philosophy, and then they allow that philosophy to live through them, never getting a direct experience. It is never a aparoksha anubhuti. It's always paroksha, borrowed experience.
I think that's a perfect way to conclude. Although we do have so many questions, but there's only so much that we can do. I think so. You've left us with this last message, which is, Swami set this model, this example for us to live by, and of course, if we're to represent him, then we must ourselves become those role models.
Yeah.
Wonderful, brother. So happy to have you here. And I'll pass it to our brother,